So today I want to talk about the 6 things you must do before you retire to help make your retirement successful and to make the transition into retirement easier. And to help make it just a bit more practical, as we're going through a few of the steps, we're actually going to build out the framework for a financial plan together using professional financial planning software called RightCapital. Now, I have given access to the software in the past, but one of the things that happened is after I reviewed some of the plans that people had created, I realized that a lot of you had absolutely no idea how to use the software. And so in today's video, I'm actually going to kind of walk through from the very beginning, and I'm going to put a link to the software in the description so that you can go ahead and open your own account if you don't have one and kind of follow along with me. But first, my name is Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner, and this channel is dedicated to helping 1 million people retire without worry. So the first thing you have to do before you decide to retire is you need to think through your ideal retirement. How are you going to spend your time? What do you want your retirement to look like? What are you going to do with your days? What are your retirement dreams? Do I plan on traveling the world? Do I want to stay in my current home? Do I want to move to a state with a lower cost of living? Do I plan on working part-time? Do I plan on volunteering? What do I imagine myself doing in retirement? And the reason we have to start with this question is because often we know we don't want to work another day, right? We think, I can't handle this job any longer, but we have no idea what we're retiring to. And there are a lot of studies that say as people enter into retirement, depression skyrockets when people retire without a plan. You need to have an idea of what you're retiring to. And you also need to have an idea of, what do I want to do with the money that I have saved? And if you're married, talk to your spouse. What do they plan on the retirement looking like? And make sure you're on the same page. And if you're not on the same page, begin to create a game plan so that you can both be able to achieve your retirement dreams. So the first step is figure out what you want your retirement to look like. What is your ideal retirement? Then the next step is you need to create a budget. What is it going to cost you to live in retirement? One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they have no idea how much money they spend on a yearly basis. Now, there are all these estimates that say in retirement, it's going to cost you 75 to 80% of your current cost, but most people have no idea what their current lifestyle cost. It's not unusual for me to talk with people who make $200,000 a year, who tell me they spend $10,000 a month to live, but they have almost no money saved. And so the question is, where is the other $80,000 going? Chances are they're spending more than they realize. Create a realistic budget and make sure it supports your retirement goals. I often tell people to create 2 numbers. You want your essential bare bones budget, right? You can't live without this money, right? To pay your property tax and pay healthcare expenses and just those basic things that make life livable. And then you have another budget, which is the non-essential expenses. And what I find is by knowing what your essential expenses are and your non-essential expenses, it actually helps you confidently spend more money early in retirement, which is when most people want to spend more money. But that's a topic for another video. But at the base level, you want to know, what are my essential expenses, and then have kind of a bucket of non-essential, nice to have, right? We'd like to take a trip to Europe once a year. I'd like to buy a new car, the things that you would like to do. But having those 2 numbers can be really helpful. And if you don't know what you're spending, get an app like Monarch Money and start tracking every penny you spend so you have a better idea of whether your plan is viable or not. And then for some of you, it actually might make sense to try your budget out. So before you step into retirement, let's say you figure out you need $7,000 a month to live in essential expenses. See if you can really live on $7,000 a month, and that will help you know whether this plan that you put together is actually a viable plan. Now you want to start getting all your other numbers in place so you can determine the viability of your retirement plan. So you want to figure out, how much guaranteed income will I have coming in? How much Social Security? What's my pension amount if I have any pension? Do I have an annuity? What are the guaranteed income amounts I have coming in? And so the other thing you want to know about your guaranteed income is, does it have an inflation rider? So often pensions and annuities do not have any sort of inflation rider. And so the amount that you receive today, $1,000 a month, is the same amount you're going to receive 30 years from now, which has a lot less spending power or buying power in 30 years than it does today. So the first thing you want to know is, what's my guaranteed income, and does that guaranteed income have an inflation rider? So the next thing you want to do is figure out your qualified accounts, and you want to split out your tax-free and your tax-deferred. So you'll say, what traditional IRAs do I have? What traditional 401ks do I have? Do I have a Roth IRA? And then figure out the dollar amounts for each of those categories. Then you want to look at your non-qualified accounts. So you want to kind of figure out those numbers. What are the different buckets I have? How much money is in tax deferred accounts, and how much money is in tax free, and how much money is in a brokerage account, and how much money is liquid? So kind of get all those numbers together. And then you want to take stock of the asset allocation. What percentage of your assets are in cash? What percentage are in stocks? What percentage are in bonds? And to help you kind of be able to do that in a more concrete way, I'm going to walk you through setting up an account in RightCapital, which will help you do this in a more efficient manner. Now, for those of you who already maybe are using Bolden, or you already have a RightCapital account and you've set it all up, or you have some other software you're using and you're not interested in kind of seeing how to set up this particular section, you can just go ahead and skip over this next section of the video. But now I'm going to switch to my other screen and kind of walk you through setting up an account in RightCapital and beginning to allocate some of those numbers that we just talked about. Okay, so here we are at the screen. You'll see when you click the link. So we're just going to do fake@fake.com. for an email, and then we'll do fake1234. Hopefully that will work. And then we're just going to do the name, John Doe. Actually, let's stay with Bill Dunphy for fun. And then we're going to agree to the terms, and we're going to click next. Now you'll notice this is a bit slow. One of the reasons it's a bit slow is because we've had so many people create accounts on our system. And so the beginning part just runs a bit slow. But it should, once we get in, should be fine. Okay, so here we are. We got Phil. We're going to make Phil born in 1960. And we're going to make Claire born in 1960 as well. So you're just going to enter in that. And then you're going to go next to income. Now, income, you're going to enter in your current income. So you can go in and, Phil's making, let's say, $100,000 a year. And Claire is making $100,000 a year. And one thing I'll note, you can also kind of put your, you have salary increase, when this is going to continue to. So both their incomes are going to continue until they retire. But we can also enter in an estimate for their Social Security. So if you have your Social Security statements, you can go ahead and enter it in based on the value. So let's say Bill's going to be $3,000, and actually let's make it $2,500. And we're going to make Claire's $2,500 as well. Then we're going to go to the next page. And the next page is, this is what they're saving currently before they retire. So you're going to enter in, if you're doing this, what percentage of their income are they putting into their 401k? So just for ease, we're going to go ahead and just put 10%. And then the question is, have they already started? And then is there a match? And yes, their company matches up to 3%. So they're going to get a match up to 3%. We'll go ahead and put that in for Claire as well. Then the question is, are they saving any other money? Well, yeah, Phil's saving about $12,000 a year, $1,000 a month. So you can see either an annual dollar amount or percentage of salary. So he's saving some money into a taxable account. Then we'll go next. Now we get to actually add the account. This is where people kind of get tripped up. They try to put their numbers in the previous page. So you have two options in the adding account. You can either link up your current account. Some people want to do that. Everything we've been able to research shows it's very secure. But you don't have to actually link your real account. You can just put some dummy numbers in here. Try to be as close as possible. So one of the things that we're talked about is you need to know some key numbers, right? So what numbers do you need to know to determine the viability of your retirement plan? So the first thing you want to know is your guaranteed income, right? Social Security, pension, etc. So we just entered in the guaranteed income, which is Social Security. The next thing you want to know is, how much money do I have in savings or in my bank account? So they've got, let's say they've got $50,000 in their bank account. Then the next question is about investment accounts. You want to know, how much money do I have in qualified accounts? And so I'm going to go here. We're going to say Phil's 401k, and we're going to just put 401k here. And Phil has $600,000. And then the other thing you want to know is, you also want to know what's the breakdown between how's that money invested between stocks and bonds. And so we can go down here and we can customize it. There's some model portfolios you can see here. Let's say growth. So they have a 70-30, 70% stocks, 70% bonds. This isn't rocket science. We're not trying to get it an exact. We're just trying to get close. So we've entered in Phil's 401k. So now we're going to enter in the next account. So we want to know how much money do we have in guaranteed income. Then we want to know how much money do we have in qualified accounts. So IRAs, 401ks. And if you have a Roth IRA, you want to split that out as well. In this scenario, we're going to say there are no Roth IRAs. They just have 2 401ks. And we're going to go ahead and make Claire's 401k the same amount. So we're going to make Claire the owner. Go ahead and choose 401k, 600,000. And Claire is a bit more aggressive, it turns out, in her investments, and she has 80-20. So we're going to put that there, 80% stocks, 20% bonds. You can put something, you can do a customize and actually put in your own allocation, but we're just going to keep this very simple for this scenario. So we're going to close that out. So they've got $600,000 in investment accounts. And in a minute, we'll be able to see the breakdown between qualified and unqualified. So they've got about 1.2 million between their 2 401ks, 600,000 in each. But they also have a taxable brokerage account. This is an account that's actually in their trust. So we're going to go ahead and put that there. We'll put family brokerage, and we'll say they got 500,000 in here. The cost basis is about 250. So that's what they bought it for. And it's fairly aggressively invested. Actually, we're going to go even more aggressive, most aggressive, 90-10. So there, we'll go there. We'll go ahead and save that there. Now we can continue on. So we're going to put, what are the pre-retirement living expenses? They takes about $10,000 a month to live. We're just going to leave taxes. We're going to put married filing jointly. You can adjust if there's an AUM fee. So if you're working with an advisor, go ahead and leave it there. And then you can adjust your goals. So when are Phil and Claire going to retire? Well, they both want to retire at age 65. The healthcare cost is going to be calculated separately from their other retirement costs because it inflates at a faster rate. So that's important to know. So we're going to go ahead and set that. The next thing is long-term care. So it plans out long-term care costs separately as well. 2 years for Phil, 2 years for Claire. So we'll go ahead and just leave that as it is. And then we'll leave this blank. So we're going to put and so now we're going to look at retirement expenses. They're going to live a little less expensively in retirement, $8,000 a month. So now it's going to calculate and pull all this in for us. We can go to the dashboard. And what we can now see is when we come down here is we can see, so remember, the numbers you want to know, the numbers you need to track are how much guaranteed income do I have, Social Security, pensions, etc. And then what is the breakdown between qualified money? So, you've got your tax deferred, which is qualified money, 1.2 million, and non-qualified, which is your taxable accounts. So they got about 500,000. So about 70% of their assets are in qualified accounts, and about 30% of their assets are unqualified, meaning there's not as many restrictions. Then you also want to know, what's my breakdown between, stocks and bonds, or what is my current breakdown? So now you're beginning to have kind of the bones of a retirement plan. You know how much you're going to spend, right? They're going to spend about $8,000 a month. And you also kind of know what assets you have and what are the different buckets of those assets. And we're going to come back to the screen in a minute. What you want your retirement to look like, and you have an idea of what it's going to cost, and you have an idea of what your assets are. And the next thing you want to do is you want to pay down your debt and build a war chest. You want as much cash as you possibly can have entering retirement, particularly if you're planning on doing Roth conversions. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But you want to have a chunk of cash. You want to have a cash reserve, an emergency savings of at least 6 months expenses, possibly even more, depending on your situation. And you want to have your debt paid off. Entering your retirement debt-free, with the exception of a low interest mortgage, is one of the best things you can do, both for helping create stability in that retirement plan, but also for helping you feel confidence as you enter into that plan. So the two things that are really helpful, not only for making the plan work, but also just for helping you feel confident, is having a cash reserves and also paying off your debt. So when you're thinking about, hey, I want to retire in 5 years, this is what you want to prioritize. Prioritize saving some cash and paying down your debt. If possible, you don't want to enter retirement with a lot of high interest debt and no cash. Those two things not only make your retirement a bit more unstable, but also just make it much harder psychologically. You want to have a cash reserve, a war chest, and you also want to have as little debt as possible. Next thing you need to do is plan for healthcare. Healthcare is going to be one of the biggest expenses you have during your retirement. And this is particularly important if you're retiring early, right? So you're retiring before age 65, so you don't yet qualify for Medicare. How are you going to pay for healthcare? And normally people have a couple of ways they do this. They stay on their company plan via Cobra, or they go on to the exchange. And so you want to figure out what is your plan around healthcare. One of the things we do for our clients is we actually hire a healthcare consultant because our clients are all over the US and it's hard to stay on top of all the different exchanges and different plans out there. So we hire a consultant to help people know, what is my out-of-pocket financial risk? How much is this going to cost me? Is my doctor covered? Is my prescription drugs covered on that particular plan? And then weigh the pros and cons of, being on, say, an exchange plan or doing an HMO or PPO or staying on your company's plan via Cobra. And so then that's the one component. The other thing is, for some people, you're going to be going on Medicare as you retire, but you've got some decisions as well. Do you go on traditional Medicare? And if you go on traditional Medicare, do you get a Medigap policy, or do you go on a Medicare Advantage plan? And my inclination is traditional Medicare tends to be better. It tends to feel more like a PPO, whereas Advantage plans feel more like an HMO. If you have a differing opinion, I would be interested to know your thoughts. Go ahead and leave it in the comments below. But that is generally my experience, that traditional Medicare for most people is a better option. But you also have to sort through, if you go on traditional Medicare and you don't have a Medigap policy, what is your total out-of-pocket risk? So you want to think through that, and you want to plan for healthcare cost. And you also just want to make sure you've thought through how you're going to pay for, eyeglasses and hearing aids and all the other things that you're going to need that may not be covered by Medicare. So the next thing you want to do is you want to plan for taxes. The sooner you plan for taxes, the better off you'll be in retirement. What I often see is that people wait until the very last minute to start thinking about tax planning. And the quicker you think about the tax strategy, the better, right? So if you're age 60 and you're going to retire in 5 years, it might potentially make sense to begin doing Roth conversions right away rather than waiting until you retire. Of course, it's very dependent on your situation. I'll flip over to the screen in just a minute and kind of look at it in the situation I just talked about in tax strategy. But there are some of the features that an advisor will have with RightCapital that you won't have. And one of those features is seeing the impact of delaying your Roth conversion by a couple of years. Often the numbers can grow really large. Just delaying Roth conversions by 2 to 3 years can have a big impact on the long-term efficacy of doing a Roth conversion. So, think about Roth conversions. Think about where you're going to pull money from. Think about Medicare premiums and all these different things that are related to taxes, and begin to plan for and take steps right away. So as you get closer to retirement, begin to put that tax plan in place. So now we have kind of the retirement page, and you can play with all sorts of things on this page, right? You're trying to decide, what should I do? What lever should I move? Do I take Social Security at my full retirement age, or do I take it at age 70? And then what you can do is you can then go over to the tax tab and kind of go back and forth and play with this a bit and say, okay, what happens if I do a Roth conversion? So I'm going to claim Social Security at my full retirement age, and I'm going to convert up to the top of the 12% tax bracket. It looks like it's about $900,000 more in tax adjusted ending assets than not doing a Roth conversion. And then you could come over here and say, well, what is the total amount of federal taxes paid? Looks like you'll pay about $416,000 less in federal taxes. But you could come back over to the retirement tab and you say, you know what, actually, what would happen if I, delayed till age 70? And so you could refresh this, and then you'd see that the probability of success jumps up. And then you could go look, but what's the tax impact? So I'm going to end there. I could go on all day looking at different variables. We could look at asset allocations and 100 other things. But I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the description below so you can get a free version of this to play with. It's not the advisor version, so it's a little more limited than what you see me use sometimes. So today I actually just used the same version that you'll see. So you can go ahead and play with that. And then if you're looking for an advisor, as I was going through this, you're like, this is overwhelming. There are way too many moving pieces. I need somebody to partner with on this. I would love it if you would consider working with my firm. You can find a link in the description below that can help you get more information on working with me. And then just to recap, as you're preparing for retirement, you want to make sure that you've thought through what your plan is for retirement. You want to make sure you know how much it's going to cost, or at least an estimate. You want to begin to figure out what are the income buckets you have, and what different investment accounts do you have, and get all those numbers in one place. And then you want to plan for your healthcare expenses and healthcare in general. And then you want to think about taxes. And the sooner you begin planning for those different things, the better off you'll be in retirement. Hey, thanks for watching. If you were intrigued by the talk about Roth conversions and you want to learn more, I've got a video where I go into that deeper here.